Guess where we're about to be? In the car, because I am incapable of vlogging if it's not in the car, I guess. It is hot. It is hot. Just because I don't have a lot of free time today, but I really want to get this vlog out, and I've been putting it off. And I have an hour drive, 2-hour drive technically. Let me backtrack. It is cycle day 1 of IUI attempt number 2. It's been a hell of a week. I've had the worst PMS week. Like either the worst or the second worst I've ever had, where it was like Thursday, it's Saturday today. Thursday, I was so sick. I started throwing up at 6 a.m. and I swear I was going until 2 p.m. Like constantly throwing up from the pain. And that's after, like, I haven't been at my desk all week. I worked from bed Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I had to call out on Thursday. I had to not only call out, but I had to call my mom at work and ask her to come home from work to help me take care of the dogs, because that's how sick I was. I couldn't even take my dogs out. That's only happened to me once before. Only once before did I have to call somebody to come help with the dogs because of how sick I was. So I don't know if it was like a going away party, like a good omen, like you're gonna have the worst period of your life because you're about to get 10 months free. I don't know if it was that, but it was. I've been stuck in bed all week. I'm still not feeling great right now. Like I'm still pretty crampy, but like I can at least function right now. And just because I've been trapped in my bed all week, like I'm getting out of the house. Like I should technically still be in bed. I know I should be resting. I know that's what my body needs right now, but I can't do another day stuck in the bed, or I will like end up falling into that depression pit. So we're not doing it. We are getting out. I've been on Palm Street, which if you have heard of Palm Street, it's kind of like if TikTok met eBay and had a baby. It's like a live auction site. It started as just plants, but it's grown into like more of like everything in the creative space. So like Etsy, TikTok, eBay kind of thing. I don't know if you've seen my apartment lately, but we've got a lot of plants. I was telling the Single Moms by Choice Discord the other day, I was like, I chose the worst time to get into the plant hobby. Like right now, as I'm about to have a child, like a toddler plus plants they don't really go together, but you know, we'll make it work. We'll figure something out. Anyway, I have like something like 28 plants in the apartment right now. And then I was on Palm Street and I'm about to go pick up 6 more. But the 6 more only cost me like, I think like maybe $15 total, not even, because they were like $2 and $1 and giveaways and stuff. So like I spent like $15 on 6 plants. So we did good. So I'm gonna go pick those up. Those guys are out in Poinciana, so I'm going to go there. First, I am stopping at my mom's place to help dogs sit their away for the weekend. So I'm just gonna take the dog out really quick, feed him, give him some playtime, and then we are gonna head out there. Poinciana is about an hour drive, so I'll have like a 2-hour drive today, but that's fine. I like being in the car, and it just gets me out of the house. Like I said, I've been stuck in the bed for a week at this point, and I can't do it. Like I know my last depressive episode, which is behind me now, but it was like 2019. It was one of those weeks where I was just stuck in bed for literally my period. I've been stuck in bed for like 2 weeks, and it spiraled me into the next depression episode. Like I don't want to go back to that, so I'm forcing myself to get up and out and see the sun. That was all just catching you guys up to speed. We are going to do an IUI this cycle. I have to call my doctor on Monday and just tell her that, you know, Saturday was my day 1. I should probably email her today and tell her that's day 1 just in case, but I will call her on Monday and say day 1 was on Saturday, and then we can get this IUI cycle rolling. But first, what we're going to do today is I'm going to talk about how to choose a sperm donor. This is the dog. This is Bandit. Bandit. Good boy. Good boy. He's a golden doodle. Okay, let's lock in. We've got an hour drive to Poinciana and then like an hour back. So while we're doing that, we will talk about sperm donors and like what I considered, what I was thinking about when I chose mine. initially I wasn't going to do a video like this, just because when I first started vlogging, when I posted my first video, like I had already chosen my sperm donor like months before. Like that was behind me enough that I didn't feel like I could really do a video on it, because I'd like basically forgotten all of it. I'd forgotten how stressful it was. I'd forgotten what was important, what wasn't important. Like I was too far removed from it to like really remember. But so after I got my negative result in December, I logged back onto the bank to check the vial availability for my donor, and it just kept going down. Like it was going down by 2, 3, 4 a day, and then it was gone. Within like 3 weeks it was gone. Before I could even like hope to save up enough to get another vial, it was gone. So I had to go through the process of finding a new donor, which I didn't want to have to do because it's already super hard to find donors with my specifications. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about why. For me, I know everyone is different, and I think that's kind of why people like to see these videos, is because everyone has different preferences and different priorities. For me, the number one priority is culture. So I want a donor where I feel comfortable educating on the culture, where I feel like I am represented, that we aren't erasing me. I am obviously a minority. I'm Black, I'm white, I was born in Guam. I wanted to make sure that my culture was captured. And the reason I think I feel so strongly about that is because for the longest time, I really feel like I didn't connect with, growing up, I feel like I didn't really get to connect with too much of my culture. Like I grew up my whole life, my last name is aggressively French. I didn't know how to pronounce it. I didn't know how to pronounce it until I was like 26 years old. That's how long it took me to learn how to pronounce my own name. And it was like, I always felt like I was curious about French. I always wanted to know more about French, because every time I would be out in public and I would say my name, somebody would be like, oh, is that French? And I'm like, yeah. And that's it. That's all I know. That's all I know. I don't know any French. I don't know anything about France. Like, so it was kind of like, for me, it was that disconnect. I also was growing up hearing like, you have German in you, you have this, you have that. I was born in Guam. I don't know much about Chamorro culture. Well, I didn't know much about Chamorro culture. I've been really going hard on that one in the past few years, and like really learning and connecting about the local history in Guam. So for me, that was the number one thing. I wanted to make sure that whatever donor I chose, it was a culture that I could educate on and connect my child with, so that they would never feel like they don't know this part of themselves. And of course, I know I can learn about new cultures. That's not a problem, but I wanted to do something like, learning how to be a parent is already enough of a learning curve. Like there's already so many things that I need to learn and get familiar with, that I didn't want to also add in learning an entire new culture. I wanted to go with ones that I'm already familiar with. So that would narrow my list down significantly to, it would be obviously American. It would be, hold on, we need a Starbucks break.
Thank you.
So much. You have a good day. All right, we needed coffee. Where was I? Okay, so what my list gets narrowed down to is American, because I'm American, but like, what is American really? Like, what is American really? That doesn't really narrow anything down. And I kind of didn't really want to go with the standard. I'm not going to say race plays a role into it, but I didn't want to go with I didn't want to go with like just a white donor or just a Black donor, because that felt too, how do I explain this without getting too into the weeds? Obviously I'm mixed. I'm Black and I'm white. I was raised very white. I was raised in a very white neighborhood, in a very white family. Like, me and my siblings are the only mixed kids in our family. We were raised very white. I do not want a white donor, because I do not want to erase the fact that I am POC. Like, if I chose a white donor, my child would be very, very white passing, and that would be great for them. They would have so much of that white privilege, but it would be erasure. It would absolutely be erasure, and I just didn't feel comfortable with that. And for the same reason, kind of, I didn't want to choose a Black donor, because I personally don't know too much about Black culture. I was never really engaged in Black culture. It's not something where I feel like I fit into Black crowds, for example. So it was like, if I chose a black donor, my child would definitely be more black passing, and that would be that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. I just feel like I couldn't personally give them the black culture experience, for example, or like I can definitely find communities to engage them with, but I myself wouldn't really feel like I fit in there. So it would be like it was always like extremes. So I didn't want to choose either. I didn't want to choose either of those. I didn't want to choose white. I didn't want to choose black. I didn't want to have to choose between two halves of myself, basically. I said, let me look for a Chimaran donor. So for people who don't know, Chimarans are the native people of Guam. They're the native people of the Marianas. So I wanted to choose that because that is another culture that I was born there. It's on my passport. It's something that I have spent a lot of time learning about, is the Chimaran background. But the Chimaran population worldwide is about 260,000 people. There are no donors. There are no donors. I think over the past like 5 years of me looking at donors, I've seen two. And like one was technically listed as Guamanian, which does not necessarily mean that they are Chimaran. Guamanian is the title for somebody who lives on Guam. It does not mean that they have ancestry in the Chimaran roots, if that makes sense. So narrowing to a Chimaran donor was a little bit too slim. I was still looking for that. I was still hoping to find like the diamond, the rare diamond. Didn't happen. So when I'm expanding out of Guam, it's okay, what is the next culture that I can educate on, or what is the closest to Guam? The closest to Guam would be Filipino, but that's an entirely different culture that I don't know anything about, and I didn't want to be like, I chose Filipino because it was the closest to Guam, so I'm going to force Guam culture on you, but you're actually Filipino. I didn't want to do that. So I didn't want to look. I was looking at Filipino donors, but it was like under the acknowledgement that I was going to have to learn about Filipino culture and educate on that. Guam's history has a lot of Spanish and Japanese in there as well. I'm comfortable with both of those backgrounds. Not only am I comfortable with both of those cultures and teaching on both of those cultures, but both of those places are two countries that are on my list of places that I would move, that I'm considering moving to. So I'm considering an out-of-country move in the very near future. If you are aware of the current state of America, I need a break. I need to get out. I want to get out for the betterment of my family. And Japan is number 1 on my list of countries to go. Spain is like number 3 or 4. I think Portugal is higher than Spain, but I don't know any Portuguese, and that's what's putting me off of Portugal, but I would prefer Portugal over Spain. I do know Spanish. I could function in Spain. And I know Japanese, so I can do fine in Japan. And it's very hard to find a Japanese donor as well. That is a very small pool. In the 5 years of searching, I think I've seen 3 or 4 Japanese donors. So it's possible to find a mixed Japanese donor, but again, it's usually mixed with white, and I was just really, really concerned with the white overpowering everything. I don't want erasure. I don't want to do erasure. So I was looking for like a full Japanese donor. And I don't think I want to go too into details on which donor that I'm choosing, which one I'm going with, just in this public of a forum. But just know it's slim pickings, and at the moment, I believe I've chosen a Japanese donor for this next cycle as well. So as I said, culture is the biggest priority for me. It is the number 1 thing that I was looking at, considering. It was the most important factor for me to consider. So once we've taken culture into consideration and I've narrowed my pool down to Spanish or Japanese, that gives me very slim pickings from there. Then it's how do I choose from those slim pickings, right? I would say for me, the next priorities were health. It was just like, I stay away from the profiles where, like, if you look at their family history, their family medical histories, I stay away from the profiles that are 100% clear. Like, if you say no one in your family has anything, they don't have asthma, they don't have acne, they don't have glasses, nobody has anything, I feel like you're lying, and I don't want to choose you as a donor. Somebody's got to have something. It doesn't have to be serious. I don't want anything serious, but somebody's got to have something. You can't tell me nobody in your family has anything. Doesn't add up. That doesn't add up to me. I don't want perfection, because I just don't believe that. I just don't feel like that was honest, and I would rather you be honest and tell me that great-grandmother died of pancreatic cancer than to tell me that everyone in your family was perfectly healthy, and then I come back to find out my child has some very serious condition because you didn't report that. So if the health record was too clear, I said no. On the same vein, if the health record said anything that, like, if the donor is a carrier for anything severe, you have to, like, acknowledge that you have to, like, acknowledge and sign something that says, like, you understand the risks, they are a carrier for this thing. You have to, like, basically sign a waiver. If I had to do that, it was a no. It was a no. I didn't want to have to do that. That being said, I know from my SEMA-4 that I am a carrier for biotinidase disorder, so I did stay away from any donors that were also a carrier for that. That's the only thing that I'm a carrier for, so that's the only thing that I stayed away from, was anyone who had that, and it's pretty rare, so it didn't narrow down too many options for me. Other than that, I was basically looking for anyone who had health records that had something on it. Like, literally, I was looking for something that had something on it. Like, I wanted to see what people had. Most people would be honest, like, grandfather had cancer, had lung cancer, but he was a smoker, so, like, that makes sense. That was lifestyle choices, not genetics. And I know I talked about this in my earlier videos. CMV status, I didn't even consider. I did my research. I encourage you to do your research as well, but for me personally, I feel like the risks of me contracting CMV from my donor were slim enough that I didn't care. I didn't want to have to narrow it down to a CMV negative donor, or I would have even less options to choose from than I already do. I just didn't want to do it, and my clinic's fine with that. My clinic made me sign a waiver saying I understand the risks, and that's fine. So that I was not considering. I'm also not considering blood type. I have B negative blood. If I had to narrow by both CMV negative and B negative, or like RH factor negative blood, like, I would have like 2 donors of the entire world. If I didn't have any other filters, I would have like 2 donors in the entire world that I could work with. And I didn't want to be that. I didn't want to have to be that specific. I'm not that concerned with RH factor because, of course, again, do your research, but mostly it doesn't affect the first pregnancy. It would be the second pregnancy and beyond that you just need to get the rogram shot so that your body doesn't develop antibodies that will attack your baby because of the conflicting blood types. I'm comfortable with choosing an RH positive donor as well. We can't narrow it down that much. We can't narrow it down to the perfect donor. It's not possible. And it's also just like, how much of this is playing God? Like, honestly, do you know your partner? If I was in a traditional relationship, would I know my partner's RH factor? Would I know their CMV status? Like, it's not that serious. I don't need to fearmonger. I don't need to psych myself up thinking this is going to be a problem. It's not going to be a problem. My baby's going to be born perfectly healthy. It's going to be fine. So I don't need to have that level of control. At this point, my factors are culture and health records. Again, I don't want a perfect health record, but I don't want it to be crazy severe either. How do we narrow it down from there? For me, at this point, this is where we just start getting superficial. This is where it does not actually matter. It has no impact on the baby's health. Now it's just down to personal preferences. For me, that was like, it was like, this is where you start to have fun with it. Once you've narrowed it down at that point, you can start to have a little bit of fun. And you can look at the profiles, and I would be like, what sports do they like? Oh, they like football? No. And I'm not going to say, like, I'll completely cancel someone out for liking football, but, like, if it's down to 2 donors and one says I like football and one says I like soccer, I'm going with the soccer one because I like soccer, and that's not genetic. That is not genetic. My child is not guaranteed to like soccer just because both of their parents like soccer, but there's a chance. There's not a chance. There's a chance. So I would look at things like that. I was like, what pets do you like? Do you like dogs? I like dogs. Great. So at that point, it's like profiles that I felt like connected with me, like the things that I like. And I guess that also goes back to I plan to share all of this with my child. Anything that I know about the donor, I plan to share with my child. So like if they're like, yeah, what did my dad like or something, then I can be like, they like to play flute and mom played flute. So do you want to try playing flute? Like things like that. Like it again goes back to, what do I know that I feel comfortable explaining to my child? It obviously doesn't have to be perfect. I'm not going to know everything. There's going to be things that I'm going to have to learn along the way, and that's totally fine. My donor, if they like swimming, the only thing I know about swimming is there's a swimming anime that I love. Like, that's all I know about swimming. My cousin did a lot of swimming. I could have them talk to my cousin if that's the case. But like, for things like that, it's going to be like, I'm going to have to learn, and that's fine. But if it's something that I already have an interest in, it's just going to make it that much easier for me to like play with my child. If they're like, I really have an interest in art, then it's like, great. It's something I know. It's something I'm comfortable with. We can hit the ground running with this, rather than me trying to learn it at the same time while like showing my child that they're, you know what I mean? Like, without having to like I want to have that confidence when I'm trying to teach them about these things that they're interested in, versus me trying to learn it as well. Like, that could have its perks as well. But I feel like some things it'll be harder for my child to like accept, for my child to maintain their interest in if I'm not equally as interested in. And I guess that's just me. Like, for me personally, when I'm like, we'll use my creative writing, for example. I will be working on this one story, but if like no one has interest in it, then I lose motivation. Versus if someone's really interested in it and like asking me questions and remembering things about it, then I'm motivated, and then I'm going to keep writing it. So like that very well could be a trait that's genetic. Like, just that interest level, keeping interest based on your environment, that could be very genetic. So like, if I'm more interested in the things that my child is interested in, that could keep them motivated and inspired to keep doing it. I guess the one thing that I really didn't talk too much about is anonymous versus known ID donors, and that is because I was not going with an anonymous donor. I knew before I even seriously considered starting this journey that I wanted a donor that was available for my child to know at 18, sooner if possible, but 18 would be fine. I knew that I did not want my child to always have just a question of who. I knew I wanted my child to be able to meet their father one day. Like, that's not a negotiable for me. And part of that comes from the fact that one of my best friends growing up was a donor-conceived child, had 2 lesbian parents, and they got to, I was there when they got to, like, you know, learn about their donor and meet him and meet their siblings from their donor. So it was like, I got to see the difference and the impact that made on their lives. And I think that really just set it in stone for me that, like, that person was perfectly happy not knowing their donor. Like, they were happy, they were fulfilled with just their mothers. Like, that was fine. They weren't feeling like they had questions. They weren't feeling like alone or anything in the world, but they also really enjoyed just having that ability to connect with their donor and get to know them and get to know their siblings. So that's kind of what I want for my child. I want them to, like, you know, feel completely happy, feel fulfilled with just me as their mom, but I want them to have that option where once they're 18, if they want to reach out to their donor and make that connection, they can do that. I want them to have that option. I refuse to not give them that option. And I think most banks these days do. I think there's still one that has some anonymous donors, maybe 2, but I think most of them now have the open ID thing. So that was an easy decision for me. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I would consider when I was going through like the profiles and stuff. I think that's pretty much it. I was just looking at cultures that I could teach on, that I felt comfortable with. I wanted to choose health. I don't want to be irresponsible about this. I want my child to be healthy, as healthy as we can guarantee, as healthy as we can control. Obviously, we can't guarantee anything, but we can do what we can to mitigate risks. I wanted that. And then I wanted just someone's profile that I felt like I could connect with. Like, there's a good chance I will never meet this person, and that's totally fine. But I still wanted it to be like we had some stuff in common, just because I feel like if we would get along more, like if I were to meet them in person and we would get along, I felt like that would make more sense. Like, I don't know, that's just how my brain works. I would rather do that than choose someone that I know. Like, I wouldn't want to choose a donor that I knew if I met them I would absolutely hate them. Like, I didn't want to do that. So just profiles that I felt like we could be friends. And I'm not going to say it's like I know some people say that like it's somebody that they can imagine themselves dating. I'm not going to say that, not because there's anything wrong with that. It's just because as somebody who's asexual, aromantic, like that doesn't make any sense to me because like I can't imagine myself dating anyone, period. Like that just doesn't, that's not how my brain works. So just somebody that I could be friends with is basically my like, can I be friends with this person? And if the answer is yes, then they're probably a good donor match for me. So yeah, I think that covers everything as far as what I looked for, how I chose mine. If I remember anything else, like we'll just add on to this video, but I think that's a good one for here. I think that's a good one for now. We are on day 1 of this IUI cycle. So I did email my clinic a little while ago. I emailed my clinic just to give them the heads up. I don't think anyone's in because it's the weekend. I don't think my representative works on the weekend, but I sent her an email just in case, and I will give her a call on Monday morning and just let her know that cycle day 1 was on Saturday, which means I should have a baseline ultrasound. I think we did it on day 4 last time, so it'll be probably like Tuesday, Wednesday. I think it was like day 4 or 5 because I remember that I was like my bleeding window is like 4 or 5 days. Like by day 5, I'm not really bleeding anymore. And I remember that I was going in for that baseline and I wasn't really bleeding anymore. So it'll probably be like Tuesday, Wednesday for that baseline ultrasound, and then we get things rolling. I'm feeling good about this time, guys. I'm feeling good about this time. Like I said, this was one of my worst periods that I've had my entire life. If not the worst, it was the second worst. So it was all just PMS. Like I was saying, those cramps were so bad I had to call out on Thursday. I did not start bleeding until yesterday night, like 6 p.m. is when I finally started bleeding. So it was just all that pain and all that throwing up, and I wasn't even bleeding yet. It was so annoying. But, and I'm on I-4 if you can't tell, because I'm at a complete standstill on I-4. So yeah, I started bleeding like last night. So I consider today my first day of full flow. So we'll do baseline next week. It'll probably be another medicated cycle. I don't see why not. I feel like, especially because of the loss, that it'll be another medicated cycle. So, I'm assuming we start some letrozole next week. We'll see. I'll have to see what my clinic says, like if they change my protocol, but I don't see any reason why we need to change my protocol, since it was most likely just down to egg quality. I do feel like, I do feel better about this time. Like, I wouldn't say that I was eating poorly before, but I don't think I was making conscious choices. So after my loss in December, I did buy that, I bought the book, It Starts With an Egg, and this video never made it public. So I was going to do a video that was like healing after the loss and like what I was doing to prepare for my next IUI. I couldn't do it. I couldn't get through the video. It was too much. I still needed to just process the loss, and just trying to like record and do all that it was too much for me. So that video never made it to light, but I did read the It Starts With an Egg. And at this time, since this was December and I was planning on trying again immediately, like January, February. It Starts With an Egg says a lot of things like you should be doing this 4 months before you start trying and all that. And I was like, well, this is great. It's not going to help me because I'm planning to start right away, but I'll still make some of these like minor diet adjustments, like just being a little bit more conscious about what I'm eating, how much I'm eating. And I don't mean like volume. I don't mean like how many calories. I mean like how much calcium, how much protein. Like that's what I mean when I say like how much I was eating. Like, am I eating enough to guarantee good egg quality? So I wouldn't say I was eating poorly before, but I wasn't eating so consciously. I wasn't so worried about like what is the nutrition in this. And I started making like subtle shifts. I don't think I did too much. I still needed it to be like low effort, because for me, eating is a chore anyway. Like I rarely ever feel hunger. Like I have to remind myself to eat. I can't make eating any more of a chore than it already is for me. So I did make subtle shifts that were basically just switching some of the groceries that I was buying, and that's about it. But I have been making more effort to make sure, like I've got more fresh fruit in my diet. I've been doing my smoothies with like making sure that my smoothies got everything in it. They got protein, I've got nuts, I've got avocados, I've got spinach, I've got like literally everything goes into my smoothies. they all taste great, but like they're stuffed with so much crap. They're stuffed with so much, like, those are super smoothies. And I've been making sure to have those. Like, I've been making my own bread all year. I haven't bought bread in 2025, and I'm very proud of that. Just like subtle little shifts like that, but I have noticed a difference. My stomach is much happier with me these days. So like, even though I wasn't initially planning on having the 4 months recommended and it starts with an egg, even though I wasn't originally planning on having that, I've now had it. I've now had like 7 months. I've had 7 months of having shifted my diet a little bit. So hopefully that does help with my egg quality, and we'll see what happens with this cycle. And obviously, because I wasn't so strict about it, I can't say 100% for sure, like if this one sticks. I can't say, 100% for sure it was because I made those changes in the book. I can't say that because I wasn't strict. I wasn't strict about it. I wasn't tracking it. It was just subtle shifts that became habit. So I'm sure it helps. I've been drinking more water. I have been doing that. Still not great, but better. So I'm sure it helps. So we'll see. I'm sure I'll do another letrozole, another trigger shot. I think that would make my IUI date somewhere around like July 24th, 25th-ish, something in there. Assuming I ovulate the same, I'm usually like day 15, day 16 ovulation. So I'm excited. That will be our next 2 weeks. So that's today's update. Thank you for watching. I know it was just me in the car the whole time, but like I said, I've been meaning to get this video recorded for ages, and I just have not had 5 seconds where I was sitting still long enough to record it. And I figured that me being stuck in the car for an hour was the perfect time to get it done and stop making excuses. So another car vlog, and yeah, maybe the next one won't be the car vlog. So if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like this video, subscribe if you haven't, if you would like to follow along on my journey. The next video will be most likely the start of my cycle. I might do another one in there. I feel like I said something at the beginning of this video that I was like, that'd make a good video. So I'll check on that, and if we make another video before my cycle starts, then we make another video. I'm trying to get more consistent for you guys. I'm trying. Life is lifing, so it's a good thing. Life is lifing in a good way. So yeah, hopefully we'll have some good news this month.